I'll bounce back and forth a little bit between the root, which is what something you said, that the text, the ancient wisdom literature text, is called Veda, V-E-D-A. Veda means knowledge. English. Veda means knowledge. And the Vedas, big. It's a vast body of literature, originally present in this world through oral tradition. Wasn't written because, according to the Vedic texts, people's memories were much better in previous ages. So they could just hear and they could remember after just hearing once. A little different than today. So today things have to be written down. But the Vedas speak of, one of the things they speak of is time. And time moves in cycles. Day and night, or anything you think of that involves time. Moves in cycles. And the purpose of the Vedas, there's during different cycles of time, there are different processes that are most effective for achieving the purpose of knowledge. The purpose of knowledge is to know who you are. And it's a big statement, but it's, beyond the temporary is who you are in the eternal perspective of time, because time is past, present, and future, but then there's also time eternal. So the realm that we're in is past, present, and future realm. And the purpose of the Vedas is to help us reconnect with the eternal. That's who we are. Reincarnation. Yes? Do you struggle with that because your roots are Catholic? That, the reincarnation is something to seriously consider, and do you struggle with that a little bit?
No, I don't really struggle with it because I guess in Korea it is based on Buddhist, and so I also learned that as that is part of.
That's part of reality.
Yeah. And so it is Korean Catholic. It's not like European Catholic.
Ah.
And they're actually quite open to.
Okay. Good. So within this Vedic wisdom literature, the Bhagavad-Gita is one small part of a vast body of literature. And it's kind of like making comparison of undergraduate study compared to graduate study, compared to postgraduate study. It's kind of entry level 101 of the teaching, what the vastness of the body of Vedic wisdom teaches people, how to know who you are. It deals with the temporary and describes in various ways how the temporary can be configured in such a way it's conducive for realizing who you are, realizing the eternal. Music, art, architecture, sociology, politics, food, A to Z. Just like a big university has many departments of study, biology, science, so all of that's in the Vedas. I'll give one example. Maybe you know this from Korea, cosmology, the structure of the universe. There's a very amazing profound section of the Vedas that deals with the structure of the universe, cosmology. I was just listening, my teacher or guru is Prabhupada, so they use his name. You heard his name yet? No?
Yes.
The founder.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
The
Okay.
Bhagavad-Gita last page.
That's when I was in one few years ago, I was in college. About 50 years ago, I was in college. And Prabhupada visited our campus. That's how I didn't know who he was. I didn't know nothing about nothing. But my experience was chanting. And so that's a type of meditation. And it's a meditation that connects one through sound with who you really are. Sound works like that. Oh, there's so many things to say, but so I'll just try to stay focused. So I was just hearing a lecture Prabhupada was speaking. All over the world, he was asking, why is it that all over the world, the days of the week, the language is different? Is it in Korea? Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and the weekend was Saturday. Different names.
Yes.
But why is it all over the world? It's Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Why? And he was asking the audience, does anybody know why? And he said, and I asked our PhD scientist, is there a reason why? And he didn't know either. It has to do with cosmology. Because, listen, according to Vedic cosmology, there's a vertical dimension of the universe, and we're in the middle region. And above the middle region, there's a name for it in Sanskrit. I know for a fact there's also a name for it in Chinese. So there must be a name for it in Korean. The middle region of the universe. And above that is the sun. And above the sun, in vertical dimension, is the moon. So Sunday, Monday, and then Tuesday is whatever the next one is, Mars, going up. And then the last one is Saturn. Saturday. Now that's in the English language, whatever it is in some other language, it has to do with cosmology. For example. So the Vedic text was spoken in Sanskrit and then written in Sanskrit and continued in a written form in Sanskrit. And then the Sanskrit is chanted, and that chanting is a sound. And persons would learn knowledge, Veda, through sound. And then all fields of knowledge is within the Vedas. But the purpose of all those different, including the Vedic cosmology portion of the Vedas, is to know who you are. And knowing who you are is, if there's a holistic picture of knowing who you are. There's the eternal, but there's also the temporary, like the body, and then the part that you don't see, the subtle body. It's within Bhagavad-Gita, but there's, in addition to the gross body, there's a subtle body. What's a subtle body? It's made of three main elements. Mind is subtle. More subtle than mind is intelligence. And more subtle than intelligence is false ego. That's the subtle body. Mind, intelligence, and false ego. That's inside, or not like confined like a box, and inside a box you have something, but it's subtle, and thus, as we're walking around, we have a gross body, but we also have a subtle body. And the force that's animating both the gross and subtle body is who we are. That's the eternal self. And the eternal self continues in this process of transformation or transmigration. The conventional word is reincarnation, but it's happening even in our present lifetime. Time, remember, it moves in cycles. So birth, death, disease, and old age. There's the birth of a living entity, and then its growth, maintenance for some time, producing byproducts, dwindling, and vanishing, death. And then, so the Vedas teach us how to use, through sound, how to use the temporary in such a way it helps us, it enhances us to connect with the eternal. Who you are. And, you know, and everything that's involved in the temporary includes the mind. And this is where meditation comes in. Meditation uses matter, like the tongue. By mantra meditation uses the tongue, that's material, and the ear, which is material. And, you know, then the nervous system, the neurological system that registers that sound in, you know, various ways, and you can describe how it works. But it's the configuration of matter, put the configuration of matter in alignment that helps one realize who you are. And then to do all the other things of life, like eating, in such a way it's conducive to realizing who you are. Not just to maintain the body, or that, you know, something you like this taste and something. It's there's a purpose. And when accepting things that's in this world of the temporary, the Vedas teach us how to accept those things that are conducive to knowing who you are. That's the goal. It's the mission of human life. Or say it negatively. Lower forms of life don't have that same facility. Consciousness through life cycles, Darwin's idea of evolution isn't a new idea. It's in the Vedas. But it doesn't speak of chemical evolution, it speaks of evolution of species. As consciousness evolves naturally by natural laws, then a life form suited for that particular consciousness for some period of time, and then elevation of consciousness, another life form and another life form. In the Vedas, it's like, you know, biology or zoology or botany. It's in the Vedas. From plant life, from aquatic life to plant life, to insect life, to bird life, to animal life, to human life. And there's evolution up to the human form of life. The spirit soul is just moving from one to the next form of life. And interestingly, the subtle body, that's mind, it's three things: mind, intelligence, and false ego. They don't disintegrate. The bodies disintegrate. Earth becomes earth, water becomes water, fire becomes fire, air becomes air. But the subtle body keeps moving along with that soul that's transmigrating through different species up to the human form. And then comes the opportunity of the human form to realize who we are. And the Vedas helps us understand how to use the temporary in a beneficial way with alignment to that higher purpose. And meditation, back to the topic that you wanted to hear something about, is part of that elevation of consciousness, is a method or technique. According to Bhagavad-Gita, when I say Bhagavad-Gita, you know what that is now, right? Not really. Okay.
It's a song of
Song of God.
song of God.
Yeah, Gita is the Sanskrit word that means song, and Bhagavan is God. So Bhagavan or Bhagavad is it's just the tense of the word. It's a song of Bhagavan or Bhagavad-Gita. So, through sound, in Bhagavad-Gita, Krishna says, whatever the mind is fixed on at the time of death, the mind will carry the soul to the next life form from the human form. So from the human form, one can go higher. From the human form, one can go lower. Or from the human form, one can stay in this middle region. So one can go up. Commonly, language is different in different cultures. Heaven. And one can go down, the dark place. Or one can stay in this middle region. Now, this is cosmology again. But it is depending upon the mind. And the mind is very much, where the mind goes, very much dependent upon sound. And so Vedic wisdom teaches, hear spiritual sound, and your mind will become spiritualized, and that will help elevate your consciousness to a better place. It's a science. You can say it's a science of consciousness, because that's a portion of the Vedas, is to understand consciousness. And the connection between the mind and consciousness, the connection between mind and the coverings, the bodies, and how to discriminate between one thing and another thing. That's intelligence. That's what intelligence does. It just discerns or discriminates between. Discrimination has negative meaning, connotation these days. Discriminating against, certain groups of people or something. But discrimination in the wholesome sense means distinguish one thing from another thing. That's all. IQ test starts testing, can you distinguish between this thing and that thing? That's what IQ tests do. Because that's what intelligence does. It discerns distinctions between things. So how to direct the intelligence, how to direct the mind, how to direct matter in such a way it aligns with realization of who you are, because that's the human mission. And knowing who you are is incomplete without understanding the big picture. The big picture means what's the source of everything, including me. And my mind, which isn't me, and gross matter, which isn't me, but it's all around me. So what's the source of all this? And that's part of understanding me, because I'm part of something that's bigger than me. So God realization and self-realization go hand in hand. One isn't complete without the other. That's a Vedic wisdom understanding. So when you say to know yourself, there's a big picture to knowing yourself. But we just start with, Bhagavad-Gita starts with who you're not, and then who you are. We're not the cup, we're not the body. We're not the subtle body. We have one. That's not who we are. It's like I have some clothing. When I change from this clothing to another clothing, it doesn't change my identity. It's just change of clothing. So the body is a covering. That is not who I am. Now, this lifetime, I was born in America, and you're born in South Korea. Now you're living in America, and who knows? Maybe you become a citizen. You'll say, I'm American. And then, when you pass on into another lifetime, you'll be whoever you're going to be. So who are you? The beginning of Bhagavad-Gita is I'm not the body. And then there's, without going through a Bhagavad-Gita class, there's teachings that help one align with the meditation process. So even there's disturbance going on the body and the mind, and even my intelligence isn't discerning things properly. I'm not able to tell what's what properly. But the Vedic, by sound vibration, by meditation on sound vibration, it helps naturally bring that alignment. And that's one of the main practices that we like to, just what you experienced when we first started, the sound. With musical instruments, it can be any musical instruments, but there's some nice ones. But the essence is the sound. And side by side, so side by side with the sound of mantra. You familiar with that word, mantra?
Yep.
Okay, good. Same mantra. Little Sanskrit lesson. Man refers to the mind, and tra means triate, or release, freeing the mind from stuff that's cluttering up the mind, making the mind free, or mantra, freeing the mind from the material conceptions so that I can access the spiritual reality of life. Just like if I'm holding on to something, so I'm holding on to the microphone, and supposing I'm thirsty and I want some water, I have to let go of the microphone in order to get the water. Mantras like that. Let go of the material conceptions. It's subtle, it's just conceptions. Material conceptions of life can be cleansed through mantra. It's subtle. It's going on in the mind platform, but actually it's happening on the spiritual platform. Deeper is the soul platform. That's who we really are. Because I'm thinking something other than who I am. I'm thinking I'm American and I'm a man and I'm X number of years old, and it gives a nice description of who I am, but it's not who I am. And when the mind holds on to those conceptions, the body reinforces it, and mantra gives release. And it may take some time, depending upon someone's receptivity, or I like the word, one's trajectory in their spiritual evolution. Some persons, I find, even young people, children, are really tuned in, and their radar's up, their lights on, they can receive. And some people, it's really hard to get through. Hello, knock, knock. It's hard. But it just has to do with, from the Vedic conception, it has to do with sound, and the sound they're accustomed to hearing, and thus the conceptions they're carrying within their mind, and how uncluttered or cluttered their mind is. So meditation, there's different types of meditation, just like Zen. Did you learn what it is, or did you do a little bit?
It's just breathing meditation.
Breathing.
Yes, with the sound.
Yeah,
of the,
okay.
Yeah,
Sound.
monk. Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah, sound.
Mhm.
The Zen meditation that I did was in upstate New York, in Rochester, New York. I don't know if you know your geography yet.
Yeah.
You do, okay. There was a gentleman that had written a book, and I read the book, 3 Pillars of Zen by Philip Kapleau, and I was doing Zen in the college, the place where I was living. And then I went and visited his Zendo in Rochester, and I spent some time at his Zendo. And it was a very different kind of meditation. It was blank wall, sit in a yoga posture, and it wasn't even so much emphasis on breath. It was just emphasis on detachment from thoughts in the mind. And it was powerful, but limited. Yes, it did. Well, anyway, without analyzing what it did and didn't do, it didn't teach me who I am. Because after doing so, here comes some thought, and it's like a cloud in the sky. So you're looking this way. Here comes a thought, and it's passing. And you're just detached from the thought. And you don't interact with the thought. You just, here it goes. And it's poof, it's gone. Oh, here comes another one. Life is filled with thoughts. You just don't interact with your thoughts. That's the discipline. And eventually it's just this blank. And then you're the observer of the blank. And you stay there. And you feel something. It's different.
Yeah.
It's a different feeling than chasing your thoughts. Because what are the thoughts? Then the Vedas teach what thoughts are. It's impressions that come from out there into the mind through the senses, like a photo file, because the mind is a repository of data from information from the senses, and it's stored. And it's just stored, and it's stored, and then here it comes. The thought is just an impression that was stored, and here it comes. And then it combines with other thoughts, and then there's the thought. And it connected with the thought generally is a desire. I want or I don't want. I like or I don't like. Duality. Happiness and distress and combination. And then life is pursuing those impressions that come in the form of thoughts, and we just keep doing it indefinitely, lifetime after lifetime after lifetime, pursuing, interacting with our thoughts and living our life according to our impressions. And then there's new ones, and it just keeps turning around and around, lifetime after lifetime. And Zen is a way of like putting a pause on that. And then there's another reality, and that's a reality where there isn't chasing after thoughts. And then what's that? And there's a philosophy that goes with the practice. That was nice. It was powerful. But then as soon as I stopped, every time, this got cluttered up again. And which told me this isn't natural. It's powerful, but it's not natural. So what's natural? And then I didn't exactly understand, but I'm explaining the effect of mantra meditation. That's what I'm attempting in the context of the Vedas. Mantra meditation is sound that resonates with what the soul really is, or who we really are. Once upon a time, I was a little boy. Seems like lifetimes ago. And when I was a little boy growing up, I had 3 sisters. And 2 of my 3 sisters, they played piano. So mom and dad got them a piano. And from time to time, the piano tuner would come to the house and tune up the piano. So I was a curious little boy. I wanted to see how's he doing. He walked into the house with what looked like a guitar case, but it wasn't a guitar case. So he opened it up, and there was 3 main things. There was a rubber mallet, like a wire, and a little rubber thing on the end, and then tuning forks. And he pulled out C, and you hit it, and it vibrates at a certain frequency. And then he would hold that tuning fork over the piano wires, and it would vibrate, not the other, but just the C chord. And then if it was in tune, it would make, certain waves, but if it was out of tune, they would be dissonant. Then we'd tighten it or loosen it. Then put the C tuning fork away, get the D tuning fork and hit it. Well, you didn't have to even touch the wire, piano wire. You just held it near it, and it vibrated in that frequency. With me? Mantra works the same way. There's a soul, and the quality of the mantra is the same as the quality of the soul. So by vibrating the mantra, it vibrates or awakens or resonates with the nature of the soul. We don't necessarily know what's going on. When I watched him tuning the piano, I kind of figured it out. He didn't explain it to me. It was pretty clear what he was doing. But mantra does the same. And it may take a while to feel that resonance or feel that connection. But at least in principle, the quality of that sound and the quality of the soul are the same. And it awakens, it does two things. It cleanses misconceptions or material, the clutter, and it awakens the natural conception, the natural consciousness of the soul, just through sound. And then then Bhagavad-Gita and the rest of the Vedas teaches us how to orient ourselves towards matter and stuff around us, such that it's conducive to staying in that consciousness and evolving in that consciousness of knowing who you are and living who you are instead of who you aren't. We move in a world that's all kinds of things that's not who we are. And one can learn how to move through the world that's not who we are and be just fine, just not identify with it. You act in practical ways according to, custom and culture and norms of society and things like that. You pay your electric bill, you put gas in the car, and, you do stuff. But the purpose of doing this stuff is to align with that higher purpose, the human mission, to know who you are. And things get out of alignment so that you have to go to the chiropractor and get in alignment. Have come together with persons that are on that path of knowing who they are, through good association, you can help, get realigned. Or be an instrument to help other people get aligned. And then that's the social aspect of life. And then there's the diet aspect of life and all the other aspects of life, the financial aspects of life and the family aspects of life and the other aspects of life. We have our nature, we have a body, we have a mind and intelligence and a false ego, and they have inclinations to work. Some like this, some like that, some like the other. And I'm one also, and I like things, and I interact with people that have different likes than me. And so I learned how to move in the world that's got lots of variety out there. And all the while, I'm trying to align myself with knowing who I am. And which means knowing the source of everything and connecting myself with the source of everything. In a holistic way, in a natural way, and gradually, as a lifetime of evolving in that consciousness. In the association, ideally, in the association of others that have similar liking or orientation. Differences, but same orientation. That's the oneness within variety. It's important. We respect and honor variety. It'd be pretty like not so nice. Everything was the same thing. There is variety. We honor variety, and we also like the oneness, and respect that oneness within all things, and try to highlight it and live accordingly. Now that's an outline of lots of things, but your specific, the topic I was asked to address was the effect of meditation, and I'm emphasizing mantra meditation because studies have shown, modern studies have shown, Harvard Medical School studies have shown that mantra meditation is more effective than any other type of meditation. And many other studies that have shown the same. It's so just like it's sound. So its sound helps focus. And spiritual sound helps focus more than, because it spiritualizes through sound. So mantra meditation will help minimize or reduce stress. Just anecdotal. One of the places I visit, I've been visiting for, well, I have been visiting for the last couple of years because of the pandemic, but for 10 years before that, visiting China. And in one of the places, it was in Kunming, yeah. The person who was organizing a weekend seminar was the effect, mantra meditation, overcoming negative emotions. That was the theme. It was a 4-part seminar. And the first morning, it was a Saturday morning, one of the persons told me offline that one of their employers, one of their fellow employees, an administrator in the company they work with, committed suicide. They jumped out of a window in the 7th-story building and splattered on the sidewalk beneath. So immediately, the company ordered that all members of our organization in the administrative department must take some meditation class. And they prescribed a certain type of meditation class because it's known that meditation helps reduce stress. They didn't say that, we're going to cut down some of the hours of our employees. They just said everyone's got a meditation because it has an effect on the neurological system. The mind has an effect on the gross. And neurology is part of the gross. And part of the subtle is the mind. So how do you help the mind reduce stress? So, I didn't share that at a particular event, but it impacted me. What we're doing here is to help people because more effective than other types of meditation, most effective amongst all types of meditation is mantra or sound. And of all types of sound, just like in Buddhist meditation, the sound of a gong, I know somebody in China that's taking lessons of how to be musically skilled in different bowls that are hit with different mallets and make different sounds. People more peaceful. It reduces stress. Just music hitting bowls of, you know what I mean, from your experience in Buddhism. What to speak of spiritual sound through mantra. The subtle affects the gross, or say it the other way around. The gross is a configuration to match the subtle. As I said it earlier. According to Bhagavad-Gita, whatever the mind is fixed on at the time of death, the mind then carries the soul. So the mind, intelligence, and false ego, that's the subtle body, you don't cast it off like you do the gross body. The subtle body continues on to the next life. And according to the configuration of the subtle body, a gross body is awarded by the laws of nature. So one is transferred to the womb of whoever the next mother is, whatever the next species is, whatever the next form of life is going to be, or even if it's in the human form, whose mom and dad is determined by those subtle laws of nature. Now, there are persons that oversee the subtle law. Material nature doesn't operate independently or alone. There's persons that oversee those laws. There's law enforcement agency, along with the laws. And that's a whole other topic. But then there's a supreme controller that controls those that control the laws of nature. And that's the Lord of the heart. So according to Bhagavad-Gita, now we're going to like another level, but along with the animating force of life is different languages. We'll just, to make it easy, it's the soul. In Sanskrit is Atma. Did you hear that word in your Buddhist class? Atma? Yeah. So Atma is the Sanskrit word for the soul. So along with the Atma that's situated in the region of the heart, not, if there's a heart transplant, it's not like the soul gets kicked out. It's just a subtle entity, more subtle than anything physical. And it's in the region of the heart and animates the body. Side by side with the Atma is another Atma, Param, or supreme. Par is a Sanskrit word that means supreme. So there's Atma and Paramatma in the same body. And that same Paramatma that's in my heart is in the heart of not just everyone in the room, but all living entities. One Paramatma, and individual Atmas, and yogis that sit in meditation, when they're very, very elevated in the process of meditation, they're fixing their mind on that Paramatma. The Atma is focusing on Paramatma. And to the point where they're detached from the temporary, and they're totally attached to the eternal, and their connection with the Paramatma. And when such souls leave their body, they go to the spirit, they go to the eternal realm. No more birth and death. Finished. And if one is not fixed in the supreme, there's birth and death, depending higher, lower, somewhere in between. That's the cosmology picture. And the wheel of time keeps turning, and the souls keep journeying and journeying up to the human form of life, where there's the facility to realize who you are and to live your life accordingly in alignment with who you really are, acknowledging differences in the temporary and respecting the differences, but aligning yourself with the eternal and the mission of life. So mantra meditation assists especially in that stress is caused by, you could say, things are out of alignment. It's a diseased condition, an unnatural and thus disturbing condition. Supposing, for example, because this is the world of duality, having been brought up in Korea, I'm sure, South Korea, I'm sure you're aware. You go for the happiness and you're buying into the distress. It's just part of how it works. Because as the wheel of time turns, the happiness becomes distress. You become attached to an object and the wheel of time takes it away. Or the configuration of it changes and then there's distress. It's just how the material energy works, being moved by time. So the advice of Eastern philosophies and disciplines is to become detached from live in the world of the temporary, but don't become attached to the temporary. Because even the pursuit of happiness brings misery. Material happiness. Now, what's the alternative to material happiness is not just become dull, but that, if you just negate the duality, it's dull. But the mantra meditation teaches, and Bhagavad-Gita teaches, go for the spiritual happiness. What's the difference? Spiritual happiness is connecting with who you really are and the source of everything. And that's real happiness, because the source of everything is all happiness. Ananda. You heard that word in your studies? Ananda? Ananda. Ananda means the spiritual happiness, more than happiness. Joy. Spiritual joy. Unending, no beginning and no end joy. And the soul is of that same nature, the Supreme is of that same nature, and the soul makes the connection with the Supreme, and there you are, spiritual happiness. But it takes a while because we're out of alignment, and because of a lack of alignment or unalignment, we have stress because we're trying to do stuff that's unnatural and unwholesome and unhealthy. And it's just the nature of the place. De-stress comes from alignment. The stress comes from being out of alignment. It's an unnatural byproduct of forgetting who we are. So it's a worthwhile project. Living one's life trying to know who we are. And being with others who are also trying to know who they are, accepting differences, and helping one another to come to that which is who we really are, and then living, recognizing in a holistic picture. Sometimes somebody has a need over here in the realm of the temporary, somebody has a need over there in the realm of the temporary, and we look at it. We do whatever we can to help in the realm of the temporary, but it's all in pursuance of this higher purpose. Now, that alignment with the mission of life. And that helps minimize stress. Now, there's no guarantee if that person that jumped out of the window of the 7th-story building, office building, wouldn't have done so if they had been doing meditation. They may have reached their limit anyways. But it would certainly reduce it statistically. And there are many, many, many scientific studies done on that particular point, reducing of stress through meditation. And of the meditation processes, sound meditation. And even within sound meditation, there's one nice study done at the University of Florida, where Hare Krishna Maha Mantra sound meditation is most effective. That's another PhD thesis was done on that with that study. That's effective. It may take a while because there's lots of clutter, but the cleansing is going on because it's a powerful cleansing. Like a good advertisement. Stronger than dirt. Take a while. but it's natural and effective. One more thing, and I'll just see if there's some discussion. Where Bhagavad-Gita fits in, the entry level 101 text, is it gives principles how to live your life in such a way it's conducive to self-realization. One way of describing what Bhagavad-Gita is, it's a text that outlines, in simple language, it outlines principles of yoga. Every chapter has this yoga, that yoga, another yoga, karma yoga. You know the word karma, right? Karma yoga. So it's a yoga of how to work with the understanding that I'm this spark of life within, not the covering, while living your life in the world, while working. And that the principle is working with detachment from trying to be the enjoyer of the fruits of your work. That's karma yoga, and offering results to the Supreme. Or Jnana yoga, trying to understand the Supreme by your intellectual capacities and faculties. So how to align that in such a way you connect with the Supreme. Chapter 6 is Dhyana yoga, meditation yoga, etc. Bhakti yoga, yoga of loving service. Some people like to serve others, and how to connect that tendency to connect with the Supreme, etc., etc. So different yoga principles that help you understand how to live your life according to your nature, and principles that elevate consciousness while living in the world, pursuing the path of yoga, the path of knowing, connecting. Yoga is a Sanskrit word that means connecting with the Supreme. A life of connecting with the Supreme. And different yoga principles combined together make Bhagavad-Gita. So they go well together. Mantra and Bhagavad-Gita. I've kind of been focusing on both of you. Any, before I just open it up for anybody who wants to say whatever they want to say, any thoughts or questions or doubts or something you'd like explained more?
I have a question.
Sure.
So when people do meditation and they are detached from their self and they feel free, but if the current reality situation that we are in a temporary environment, it is not.
Just for them in the back so they can hear you.
So if people practice meditation to be detached from their self and then be free from their mind, and what if the current reality that is keep on going and leading you is not changing, the situation is not changing, and there seems like no solution to it, and so you keep going back to the reality even though you detach for the temporary moment for a while, and how can you improve your freedom in your mind?
Okay. Just a little editing of the question itself. At least in the Bhagavad-Gita context, the goal is not to become detached from yourself, is to become detached from the misconception of self. Because we have a self. We are we exist eternally. And so it's becoming detached from the misconception, so that by that detachment from misconception, I can become more conscious of my eternal reality. That's a detail. It's an important detail, but it's a detail. And back to the situations of life don't seem to change. And guaranteed, everything's going to change. It may change very slowly. It may change very swiftly. And everything's going to change. Your mountains may last for a long, long, long time, but they're also going to change. And any circumstance of life is certainly less than a mountain in its duration, and it's going to change. No, but that's a detail. You're struggling with, when someone is struggling with something and they're doing meditation and becoming a little less attached to the circumstance, as you call it, the reality of things around them. How do you handle that situation? That's the question.
Yeah. You will come back to that reality.
Yeah, the reality. So, yes. One of our teachers in his written books gives a very simple answer, a principled answer. Most of the persons in this room, the verse, Utsahan Nishchaya Daryat, Tat Tat Karma Pavartana. It's a verse where it says, the first principle is to be enthusiastic, but to be enthusiastic, it takes knowing what the goal is to be enthusiastic about it. And then the next principle is patience, because things may not change for the better right away. Some things may linger for quite some time, for a long time, depending. And so one has to be patient. But so that's almost sounds like be enthusiastic, be patient is like go and stop. But it's not go and stop. There's confidence that the means that I have taken, the goal is for real, and the means that I've taken is for real and powerful, and eventually I'll get there. At least in the eternal picture of things, I'll get there. And however long it takes for the temporary to change, that's how long it's going to take. If my goal is to change the temporary, or you're calling it the reality, that's on the material side of things. The higher purpose of life is to know who I am and to connect with that higher reality. And when one connects with that higher reality, there's a happiness that surpasses the wish to see, the circumstances of life that are uncomfortable or unpleasant, or whatever. It fades. It may not fall off your radar screen, but its importance to you fades. I mean, it's something like if there's something like a child that plays, and then they go to school and they learn. That some children they're eager right away to go to school, but some children they just like to play and play and play. I know one young man who's now he's in medical school. What a grind! But when he was young, his family moved from one place to another place. And I asked, which school is better? I like the new school. What do you like better? It's more time for play. So he wasn't averse to study, but children like to play. So the attraction for play may fade. The attraction for a lesser taste may fade if there's a higher taste. The attraction for a lesser taste may fade if there's an experience of a higher taste. That's a teaching of Bhagavad-Gita. From Drishtva Navartate. So when you're taking the question you asked, if someone becomes a little matured in the meditation process, in the yoga connection process, there's a higher taste. And, the situation doesn't have to change and I'm okay. The situation may change and I'm okay. Because its importance for me, change or no change, has diminished. The importance has become something else. I'm still navigating my way through the temporary. And the temporary is changing. And some of it's quickly, some of it slowly, some of it I want it to change faster, some of it I don't want it to change so fast. But it's, its importance diminishes and the eternal becomes, that connection with the Supreme becomes of paramount importance, and there's a happiness with it that keeps me going. The next day and the next minute and the next moment. That connection, that's yoga. In one word, connection. So supposing I'm not so advanced yet, then I'm going to be impatient. Hey, it's not changing. I don't like it. I'm doing my meditation, and when I finish my meditation, in fact, it's disturbing my mind so much I can't do my meditation so nicely. But in any case, when I'm done, the reality is still there. The situation is what it is. Guaranteed, one more time, the configuration of matter will always change. It'll never stay the same. Time is moving the whole machine. You may want to go to the next frame. Well, you can't move the hands of time faster than the hands of time move. And so while you're trying to move in the right direction in terms of whatever it is, some value that you hold, or a skill development, or that you want to develop, or a relationship that's very meaningful to you, or whatever it is, you don't stop investing in those things. But its importance becomes secondary to the primary. And the primary keeps you going because there's a higher taste. Not just notional, but experiential. At the heart level, there's an experience that keeps you moving forward and tasting happiness. It's not like another happiness. Were it not so, then you'd give up and do something else. Because we want happiness. Naturally. It's of the soul. It's of the soul because it's of the Supreme Soul. An underwording. That's our nature. We want happiness. That is a greater happiness. So we have to be a little patient. Anyone else? How about you? Okay. You're good. Okay. Anyone else in the room wants to contribute something to this discussion? Can you take the microphone back there?
So Maharaj, Hare Krishna, Nanda Pranam. Can you share some practical tips, like if someone is in an unfavorable situation, then how a person can connect, can focus? Some practical tips.
Okay, microphone. You want this service? Run the microphone around? Okay. He likes it. What does Krishna say? One of the things that Krishna says, one of the first lessons, pay attention and give me an answer to your question. One of the first lessons that Krishna gives is tolerance, right? Titiksha. Matra, sparsha, stakanteya, etc. tongues to tiksha swabharas. Be tolerant. Sometimes it's hard to be tolerant. Then you scratch the itch and it irritates more. So go ahead and scratch the itch and let it irritate more. But then tolerance helps as a practical tip. Let's take for example. For example, tomorrow morning you're chanting your japa, mantra meditation. Tomorrow morning you're chanting your mantra meditation. And something hurtful happened to you or to someone dear to you. And the mind has a tendency to go to that something that happened to you or someone who's dear to you. And like her example, it not only happened once, but it's happened 8 times. You know, I feel really badly for this person that it happened, and then it happened, and then it happened. And you know, my mind keeps going to that thing. So you want a practical tip. Practical tip is there's a time for doing your mantra meditation, and that's when you're chanting your mantra. There may be some time for doing something practical, but don't plan the practical while you're doing mantra meditation. You do the something practical when it's time to do the practical. And you'll be more effective, A or B. You'll be more effective if your mind is clear, or B, you just spend your whole time doing mantra meditation, figuring out what you're going to do, and it's going to be really effective. So there's a time for practical activities, and there's a time for cleansing the mind and fixing the mind and orienting your whole life air and life energy towards the destination, the purpose of life. It's a tip. You tolerate and don't obsess about something that's has to do with the modes of nature. Attachment doesn't help. So then, a tip, because you're asking for a tip, practice doing your practical activities with detachment to the fruits of your practical activities. Aside from something that hurts. So there's this saying in stress management 101. Life throws rocks at you, or life throws a rock at you, it hits you and it hurts. Then you can obsess about it. I don't like that rock, and I don't like the hurt, and I don't like the person or the cause that sent the rock my way. Doesn't do anything about the rock or the hurt or the situation. It just makes the mind become more absorbed in the temporary. So at the right time, not when you're doing your meditation, you toss the rock up in the air a few times and consider what are your options. This is just 101, stress management 101. It's a tip. Then you can consider not just throw the rock back at where it came from in retaliation or revenge, but consider what are your options. And one of those options may be, that here's something that I do that I really like. It gives me energy, it gives me enthusiasm. I'm going to do some of that. Not, pretend, tuck the rock under a rug and pretend it wasn't there, but you do something that's energizing. You follow? It's for different people, it's different things. These 2 young boys, they apparently they like to play drums, so maybe they can sit down and do their drum practice because they like it, they get energy from it. Or somebody may like to something. You do that. Then when you have strength over here, then you can have more clarity over there. What are your options? You may just be patient. And, so your options open when you're not focused on the hurt. You're taking the mode of goodness step back and considering in reflective mode, what are my options? What's the purpose of life? Why did this, they can ask, you may not necessarily know why it happened. But, the inquisitive, reflective nature of life, you practice that, it just becomes second nature. Then you have more freedom and more intelligence to discern what happened and why, and what to do. Those are some tips. Anyone else? Yeah.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, thank you so much for the wonderful message and practical tips. My question is regarding sound meditation, or mantra meditation. Does the pronunciations really matter? As in somebody is saying Hare Krishna, somebody is saying Hare Krishna, or somebody is saying Ram Ram or Rama Rama. So since we are talking about sounds, so does that sound really matter if I pronounce it differently?
What do you think?
I'm not sure.
Ah. It's not a 1 or a 0. It's not unimportant, but it's not everything either. We should, add to our capacity, say the sound clearly. But like, Prabhupada gives the example. Someone's calling, they may not know the language, but if the house is on fire, they somehow communicate to their neighbors, the house is on fire. Or another nice example from the Bhagavatam is when Gajendra was calling for the Supreme, he didn't say the Supreme by name at all. But he knew, because it was from his heart. So more important, in response to your question, more important than the pronunciation is the orientation of the heart. See it the other way. Supposing one's pronunciation is really great, but one's heart is not really great, not going to be as effective. The other way, supposing one's pronunciation is really not so good, but one's heart is really good, that's good. So of the two, I'm making this, wasn't part of your question, but I'm saying more important is, what's the purpose behind? It is your purpose or sankalpa. Your purpose is to make that connection strong. Krishna will help you with the pronunciation. Anything else? Yeah, we have 2, 3.
Hare Krishna Maharaj and with Pranam. Really good lecture. I learned, like, every day we do chant, but when we hear something, it's remind us, like you explained that you have to keep two things separate, practical thing and meditation. But sometime out of stress, we take mantra as practical thing. Like, it's like a job. We have to complete the 16 down. We have to do it. So sometimes we stress out about that as well. Yeah. So how do we get, out of it and enjoy the mantra meditation and,
It's everything has a price, including purity. And when there's purity, then there's taste. And until there's purity, we have to pay the price. We do the scrub-a-dub to make the heart clean. So there may be some scrub-a-dub anxiety, making the heart clean anxiety. But we do because it'll make the heart clean. And we have to accept that. But it has everything. Yeah, there's a lesson for you, or a chanter that's in anxiety about numerical chanting, is here it is, that beast called fruitive tendency. And I'm being chased around lifetime after lifetime by fruitive tendency. And I'm importing that fruitive tendency over here in this spiritual activity. Let me let go, please let go. But then you're from the heart, which was the prior response. From the heart, you're calling out to the name with more feeling. I really want to be connected. Then if you don't call out with that mood, then you're still in that same zone. The stress, anxiety, fruitive, zone. So the very nature of your question is you don't want to then go to the feeling side. And if you don't go to the feeling side, you're still in that zone. It's a choice, free will choice. It takes some practice to go to the spiritual zone, away from the material zone. It's the same as enthusiasm, patience, and confidence. Same message I shared with you earlier. We have another one. Our host, the hostess. You're the hostess. You call him.
Thank you, Maharaj. So since we're talking on meditation, I just recently heard that with meditation or any kind of mantra meditation, it protects you from outside for any kind of negative influence or negative energy, which can, hurt you. So my problem is, since then, the more I'm thinking about the negative energy which is surrounded, then
You feel more attacked by it.
then just doing the meditation. So I don't know if you can share something so that I don't concentrate on the negative energies rather than the names of the Lord or any other meditation. Thank you.
The preamble of your question, I've never heard it before. It's true, the potency is there, but potency and receptivity don't always match. You follow what I'm saying? No. Okay. There may be a potency to be protected from negative forces, but supposing I'm tuned out. My mouth is going, but my mind is, and heart and everything is tuned out. The mouth is going. I'm not protected because the receptivity has been redirected. My attention is going to stop and not to the sound. So, a simple solution to your, response to your question. Bhajana Kriya, instead of focusing on what, the risks of life or your own anarthas. You follow that one? Should I say it again? I'll say it again. You got that look on your forehead. There's a sequence to the stages of bhakti. And one of the stages is preliminary faith. The next is association with saintly people. The next is devotional activity. The next is anartha nivritti, or eradication of unwanted things in the heart. That's 4. So supposing my attention goes, oh my gosh, look at all these unwanted things in my heart. I'm not doing the stage that precedes that nicely. because I'm focusing on eradication of unwanted things in my heart. So what to do? Focus on doing your spiritual activity nicely. And automatically, or in natural sequence, the eradication of unwanted things will follow. Negative. If I don't pay close attention to my spiritual activities, the unwanted things are going to linger. Or, using your example, the negative energies, they're going to come after me because I'm not properly absorbed. So put the real simple way of saying, make sure you put the horse before the cart. And the horse will pull the cart. Don't put the cart before the horse. Got it?
My question was on the basis of like discrimination that we were talking about earlier. My question is, what is the basis of that discrimination faculty?
What's the basis of?
The discrimination faculty.
What's the basis of it?
Yeah.
It's an energy of Krishna. What are you asking?
So the question is, the more like the thoughts that we have, the chain of thoughts while we do mantra meditation. So what should be our
That's the mind.
discernment?
The thoughts is the mind, and intelligence is discrimination factor. So don't mix them up. They're two different faculties. You're mixing them up. It sounds like from your question, you're merging them into one entity.
So we know that the mind goes in all
We
different
do know
directions.
that,
My question is on the intelligence.
yeah.
So how do we make the intelligence stronger so that all those thoughts?
Very easy. Let me have the microphone. Where does intelligence come from? Where does buddhi come from? Dadami buddhi yogam tam. Yena mamo piyanti te. You know the verse from Bhagavad-Gita? Not yet. Here's the verse. Kesham satate yoktanam bhajatam piti purvakam dadami buddhi yogam tam yena mamo piyanti te. Sounds right, doesn't it? Kesham, unto those who, satata, always, yuktanam, engage themselves in, bhajatam, bhaja is the root, the dhatu or root of bhakti, bhajatam, priti, means love, purvakam, completely, always, unto those who are always absorbed in serving me with love. I give the intelligence by which they can come to me. So you want to know where to get it? That's where you get it. It comes, it's a derivative of bhakti nicely performed. Say it negatively. Supposing you don't do your bhakti so nicely, where are you going to get the intelligence? You won't. Oh, I want. Okay, good. Do your bhakti nicely with love. Satata, always practice, cultivate, and then Krishna will give the intelligence. Until then, it's children in a playground, running here, running there, running there. That's the mind. I think we're good, ready to wrap up. You have something,
We have some question online.
question?
Question from Amara Mataji. Chanting changes our perspective to look at different situations and persons in our life, because then everything is connected with Krishna and may not be that frustrating. This definitely softens the heart, but this is not the only gift of chanting. what more can be palpably realized in sadhana stage?
What more did you want? I don't understand. Do you understand the question? You want to say the question in a different way? I got the microphone.
Oh,
Just
okay,
say it.
sorry. So she's saying that
Say it in
everything.
a different way.
So what more can we realize in the sadhana stage apart from having connecting everything with the Lord?
You got that, you've got everything. Everything else is included. I think I'm going to end with that. Is that right? Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Thank both of you for coming.
Thank you.
Meet up, little potluck here. Had no idea what was going to come.
Can I just ask one last question about?
One last question.
One last question.
One last question.
Yes, thank you.
I thought you'd come up with it.
Pertaining to chanting, maybe to relieve my guilt also. But during one of the recent Krishna celebrated periods, I have never been up to the full 16 rounds, but I've been, working on 6 or 8. But in reference to that most recent period, I decided to actually chant a lesser number of rounds, usually 4 or 5 per day, but to do it in a more committed way, usually a special religious setting, 4 or 5 separate periods, and devoting my time in a very devoted manner to the chanting, doing it much more slower than I normally do, because I thought that by speeding it up and even trying to do more rounds, I was, if not losing the significance of it, I was not really as focused, was concentrated on it as I thought I should be. In slowing down and doing a lesser number, I felt that I had that refocus, I had that closer spirit, that close connection. Was I wrong in feeling that way, or should I indeed feel guilty for not really trying to fulfill the great enough rounds that most people do during those special periods?
I'm going to ask you to answer that question. Just repeat what I said and you give him the right answer. You follow what I'm getting at? Your question was about pronunciation. And I said more important than pronunciation was the orientation of the heart.
Yeah.
So his question, I'm just helping you answer his question. His question is slower better? And the answer is making the heart connection is better. Whether it's slower, faster, or standing on your head, or doing cartwheels, or whatever it takes. Now, from our founder Acharya Prabhupada, he was asked this question by one sannyasi, and speed, the pace, and Prabhupada's reply was, by chanting swiftly, it helps to capture the mind, but not so swiftly that you're not hearing every syllable. It's a good capsule to work with. So slower doesn't necessarily mean better. From the heart is better, but capture the mind. Whatever works to capture the mind, do that. But chanting his words, and I found it to be true, chanting swiftly helps. Now, I don't chant so swiftly. I chant, I'm a turtle. But what's important is not, it's swiftly helps, but, swiftly compared to some people, it's like I'm a turtle. But, I'm chanting swiftly so that I can hear every sound, every syllable. That should be your litmus test. Okay. I have some Mahaprasadam from the temple. Well, from somewhere. This is from the Boston temple. And so you don't want me to give this out? You want me to give something else out? It's okay? I have permission. Okay. So I'm going to walk around and just put your right hand out and something nice will fall in your hand. Right, Krishna.